Welcome to Small Town Snarks. I'm Joel.
And I'm Miranda. Let's get snarky. Steve, I'm ending our affair.
And I faked it.
Every single time! Welcome to the podcast.
We're back.
Jen Secula.
We're
Hi.
back with Jen. Hi, Jen.
Hi.
We're so happy to have you here.
Good to be here.
Yes, you are our second guest.
Third.
Third. Oh, I'm losing track of people.
I know.
Third guest.
Okay.
And we've got so many questions for you.
We do have so many questions.
All right. Hopefully I have some non-embarrassing answers.
I think we say at least one embarrassing thing on every podcast. Is that the
Well,
rule?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. So you guys can say the embarrassing thing and I won't. How about that?
That works.
Sure.
Okay.
Sounds like
We
a
can
goal
take it
for
for
us.
you.
All right. All right.
Oh my gosh. Well, where do we even begin? You have I almost feel like you should start this conversation considering your all's relationship goes back to
Birth.
birth.
It's like, where is he going with this?
Yeah. From I mean, you all have known
Yeah.
each other for
I
a
mean,
really
I
long
did.
time.
I
while.
did exit her womb. That's true.
Yeah, I remember it like it was a while ago.
Doesn't your body release a hormone so you don't remember it?
They might. Yeah, I think they do.
Yeah,
It does.
you just
yeah.
didn't have quite enough of that hormone.
Yeah, I did it again. Oops.
Oh my goodness.
Well, I mean, we have a lot of costume things to talk about, but also acting things. But
Yeah.
I think we should start with, what's the first costume you ever made? Ever.
The first costume that I ever made was in high school for The Wiz. We had an all-white cast of The Wiz in a small Boonesboro high school, and I can say that, in the late 80s. So I cut out costumes for the people of the Emerald City, and I made my own. I was one of those people. So
Cool. And your high school also did an all-white production of King and I, right?
yes, we did.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, we did.
Some choices were made.
Well,
Absolutely.
You, to some extent, I mean, like looking back on it, I think that honestly, our drama teacher was really trying to expand our horizons. At the time, we didn't quite understand like really what we were doing necessarily, and I think that some people might have found it offensive, but I think that honestly, like, his goal was really to try to bring some culture and diversity into the situation, and what better way to do it than the arts. So I mean, we didn't have any diversity in our high school, so the other choice was to not explore those topics and those pieces. So
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, and I think that's a difficult thing to tackle, as theater makers in smaller areas. Is like, well, you continue to be sheltered by not expanding and doing this material, but you can't do the material the right way.
Yeah.
It's like it's a whole can of worms there. So yeah, I think that's an interesting point, and I don't think you could get away with it today.
no,
but,
absolutely not. Absolutely
yeah.
not. We did some really, really questionable things with makeup, and
Yeah.
but to be fair, even at the time, the people involved were not doing it in a mean-spirited way. They were doing it for a love of the art, and so
Yeah. It was just an ignorance.
yeah, I mean,
Situation.
truly ignorant. We had no idea that it could even. I mean, at the time, like even thinking about. I mean, it wasn't that long ago. I'm pretty old, but it wasn't that long ago. But at the time, like, the way people thought about things was really different, and it never even occurred to us, at least the teenagers involved, that what we were doing could be offensive. Looking back on it, yeah. But the spirit of it was not meant that way at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Was costuming always something you enjoyed doing?
Well, I always loved sewing. So my grandmother and my aunt were both professional seamstresses. My grandmother actually worked in London Fog Factory for many, many years. And honestly, my mom doesn't really sew, but when Cabbage Patch Dolls came out, my mom took up making Cabbage Patch Dolls to earn additional money, because we were in a small area, but we were also very, very poor. And so when she was doing that, I decided, hey, I want to make these dresses. I want to sew the dresses for the dolls. And so I started doing that, and then it turned into, I don't just want to sew this dress this way. I want to put an overlay on it. I want to do this. I want to do that. And so it turned into something else. And that's how it all started.
We've decided the sewing talent skips a generation.
Oh, okay.
So, her grandmother had it. Her mom does not have it. I do not have it. Hopefully, my spawn will have it.
Well, I'm gonna work on teaching my grand dog and my grand cats how to
go.
sew, and the cats already have sharp fingers, so there's got to be something we can do.
They need to
there.
earn their keep, yeah.
But until the time comes, yeah. So. And I do think, actually, Miranda is selling herself short. She's capable. It's just that she's been busy doing other things. She really hasn't taken the time to do it. And
it doesn't come naturally to me. I'm not a very patient person. I feel like especially when you're learning a new skill, you really got to have that patience. I just get mad when things don't go correctly within the first 2 hours of trying something.
That's an interesting thing to say, because honestly, and I say but honestly a lot, but I'm not a very patient person either, and I'm almost like I think the saying is, if at first you don't succeed, try again. It's like, if at first I don't succeed, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And that's really been true for me for almost everything in my life, except for sewing, and a few other things, but it wasn't that I didn't work hard at things. I do, but things that outside of what I really have to do, if it's hard for me, a lot of times I don't like to fail, and so that's a hard thing for me.
What's interesting with the sewing too, I will get into this more, but there have been plenty of times where you built a dress, you come in, you try it, and Joel and I we won't like the color or something, and we'll feel bad telling you, and you'll just be like, oh, it's fine, I'll just make another one. And I mean, I don't know if it's actually, oh, it's fine, I'll just make another one or not, but it seems like you do have a lot more patience in that area. You're just like, just build another one, whatever.
It's taken a long time to get to that point. And I've had this conversation with your father, actually, about other things that he's venturing into in his life, and just the creative process comes at certain times. And so there are certain times when making another one is not a big deal, and there are other times when it's like, oh my God, are you freaking kidding me? So I would not say I'm a good actor, but there are times when you say that where I am acting, and I'm not going to tell you when those times are, because the fact is, I know that when you're saying that, you are taking into account the work that's been involved and the work that is involved in doing it again, and you're not saying it lightly. And so I think that I can take that criticism, or not really even criticism, but that feedback, and not take it so personally, because it's not so much a feedback on me so much as it's really hard, is with costuming especially. I think for a lot of people to envision what something is going to look like until it's done.
Oh, yeah.
And so, we can have 500 conversations about what something is going to look like. I can draw you a picture, and I'm not the best artist, but I can draw you a picture, and I could say it's a pretty good likeness. I can show you images of what I think it's going to look like. But until you get that garment put together and actually put it on the individual, it's really, it's a crapshoot.
Right.
know?
I mean, we've had to have similar conversations with our set designers before, and you're right. It's never something that we take lightly. We've had to have, because like that's your art, right? Creating costumes is your art, and like, building the set is their art, right? And that's how they're contributing to the show in the process. So when we have to go up to one of our set designers who spent hours building something, we have to be like, it's bigger than we thought, and it's not going to work, and we're really sorry. Like, those conversations are difficult to have for sure, but like, they definitely, I mean, we're not, and we've talked about this before, but like, we're not doing anyone any favors by lying or being like, oh, we'll just make it work, because that's often how you get yourself into a bigger mess later down the road when you're trying to put everything together.
Well, and my favorite thing about that conversation, it goes for costuming as well, is like, if something's not working, everyone is going to feel that. If a costume isn't, comfortable for the performer, or it doesn't fit well with the scene, or in the case of a set piece, something isn't working, people are going to feel that energy. And it's like, at some point you have to decide whether or not it's worth it to have the conversation about removing it or changing it versus letting it just live and just letting it be what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And it's such a fine line. And I know we've had that conversation a lot over the years of like, whether or not something works, whether or not we can make something work, where things stand, that type of thing. So
right. And I do think, actually, like, obviously me knowing you so well, and also Joel knowing you so well, and like seeing the process for so long, and like how much of an undertaking it is to costume, especially a whole show. I mean, you used to costume our high school shows, and those were like 60 plus people on stage. I mean, we don't do that anymore, but there have been shows that have gotten close, like SpongeBob probably had close to the same number of costumes as that. And I think it's actually made us better directors and better creators, because there are a lot of times where actors get very opinionated and passionate about what they're wearing on stage. And because we have this insight into the process, we're kind of able to like tell them, hey, you're going to be hot in this outfit. Like, not like attractive, but like physically hot. You're going to be sweating. Or, hey, yeah, your sleeves are going to be itchy. I'm sorry, you only have to wear it for act one. And like, we're able to have more of those conversations. Whereas I've seen other directors who don't have that knowledge, and a lot of times they'll be like, we'll do a costume parade, and they'll be like, are you comfortable? And I'm like, whoa. You actually can't ask them if they're comfortable at this point, because we open in 3 days, and there's not time to actually rebuild this costume. So I was like, don't ask a question you don't want the answer to. But it's a hard line to draw, and I think a lot of people are just like, oh, well, I don't want to be sweaty on stage, so I'm just going to bring in my old dress from home. And I'm like, well, we have to see that and vet that and make sure it goes with everything else. But yeah, how does it feel to be working on the creative side of the part of the show that I think sometimes the actors are actually the most passionate about?
It's hard. You also have, people who have body images. And you have people who have no concerns about their body whatsoever and are willing to have it all out there. And so, but everyone comes in with an opinion. And some of them feel like that should be what matters the most. And, it's taken me a while to find a way to deal with that, because I'm also I'm a people pleaser. And I do care how people feel. That's part of the reason why I like doing this. I feel like costumes are a big part of the show. And, there's other aspects of that, but, it's I forget the question. I'm sorry. I totally lost.
I was just saying, like, how does it feel to be in charge of like a creative process that oftentimes the actors are actually like the most passionate about?
It's tough. It's tough, and so you guys have ideas of what should happen. The actors have ideas of what should happen. I have ideas of what should and can happen.
Right.
And then you have budgets. I mean,
right.
and so like trying to weigh all of that on top of, some people have sensory issues with certain fabrics, and there are just so many aspects to take into account, and it can be really, really stressful, but it also can be really, really rewarding, and so like I think in high school it was something that it was a skill that I had that nobody else had. So it was something that was very special to me and something that I could contribute to theater that no one else could do, which, I rewatched my high school shows, and, in high school I thought, why am I not the lead? Why am I not... I can see now why I was not the lead. I was shy. And I still, I'm really an introvert. I'm a very shy person. But what that means to me, like from a costuming perspective, and I think that when I realized this was when you were in high school and working with teenagers, again, from an adult perspective, like
right.
coming in and seeing these teenagers going through this angsty time and this awkward phase, and theater is wonderfully such an inclusive art form, and you have people who aren't comfortable in their skin or are really, really shy, but they're putting themselves out there to do this. And as a costumer, sometimes it's like you put that costume on them and they light up. And it just brings like everything together for them. And to me, and I said something about not being a good actor, but I have a really hard time performing during auditions, performing during rehearsals. And, I really was like examining that recently, like, why is that so hard for me? And the reason is, like, I need the full thing. Like, I need the costumes. I need the lights. I need everyone engaged. I need, like, the full... It's almost like a fantasy world at that point. And so, like, to be able to be in the position to help someone else come out of that shell a little bit through costume. It's just a costume, but it can mean the world sometimes. Absolutely. And sometimes it's like, I love to make things from scratch so much more than like altering things. Like I hate hemming and stuff like that. Anyway, but when you've made something and someone who just has a real appreciation, like they don't have any idea how many hours are involved, and it's not about that, but just the real appreciation for something that you've made for them, and they feel special because of that, it makes you feel good.
Yeah.
So you do get a lot out of it.
Yeah, I think just recently with Into the Woods, you just came in and did measurements, and I can't even tell you how many people were like, "Oh, we're getting measurements!" Like, I'm so excited. And I was like, "Calm down! Like, it's just part of it. What are you talking about?"
Just wait, you're not getting any costumes. We're just doing measurements.
just measurements. I would really love. I know Miranda has talked about this a little bit, and I know we've alluded to it as well, but we all have a long history of working together over the years, and I'd like to take a quick trip. Well, we'll take a trip down memory lane a little bit with you and talk about some of the costumes and some of the shows that we've worked on and whatnot. But I would be remiss if we didn't take a moment to talk about our high school experience. So,
well, wait, let's talk about daycare first.
Oh, sure, yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, so
gosh.
I didn't get to actually watch it.
Oh,
I don't think, but you guys did. Little Shop of Horrors.
We did.
Yeah.
In daycare.
We did.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, if I could get my hands on a recording of that.
I think one lives in the universe somewhere. But yeah, that one, like, so Cats was an invited performance, but Little Shop was like just for the other kids, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
and we had like it felt huge at the time. I don't know how big it actually was, but like a huge cardboard
Audrey
plant
too. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
situation.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, I mean, we
Who were you in that show? I don't remember. Were you Audrey too?
I feel like so. Our shows were always the same ones that they were doing at the high school because that's the only way that we knew what
Of course, and you had an older brother, so of course you're doing it.
Yeah, so I think my mindset was always, if we're doing a show, I'm going to play whatever role he's playing because I'm sitting at home watching him prep and like, get ready to go for rehearsals and that type of stuff. So I'm pretty sure I was the voice of Audrey too, if I remember correctly. But yeah, I mean, we did Little Shop and we did Cats, and yeah, I mean, that was... We got started there.
That probably explains to me why the story that I remember anyway at home was that someone at daycare's father was Audrey on Broadway.
Oh.
I don't know.
I think I really exaggerated.
I don't know this. Or if something got misconstrued, or but I'm guessing that probably Zach was in the show, and that just got like...
And that did feel like Broadway to us.
It did.
Like,
it felt big.
I think that was one of the big things, is like seeing shows at the high school as a little kid, or seeing shows like community theater. Like, we saw a community production of Into the Woods together when I was little. Like, that was same scale as Broadway as far as I was concerned. I mean, that was like... That's where you wanted to be. That's what you aspired to be.
And at that age, we had nothing to compare it to either. I can't even... the first time I saw a Broadway show was in the 6th grade. So, at that point, the theater I was seeing at the high school, like you said, was Broadway. That was the big thing.
Right. And even if we saw both, I think it's like the difference like kids have between like seeing a good kids movie and a bad kids movie. They're both equally fun to them.
Exactly.
It's the parents who are like, wow, this movie's
really
kind of garbage. But
so true.
I think were any, not like flags, I guess, but I'll use that terminology. Were any flags raised like from us doing that stuff at such a young age where you're like, oh boy, we're gonna be listening to musicals for a long time?
I was so excited, and you guys mentioned high school, like that's so I did a show with my brother, like in elementary or middle school. I have a recording of that. It's unbelievable.
Oh my gosh, I want to see
I
that.
do.
I've never seen that.
And it was called Dragon Tale. I still have either the whole script or the playbill. I'm not sure which one. So I was on stage before I saw anything on stage, but then my first show that I saw on stage was Brigadoon at the high school. And oh my God, it was like the world had opened up.
Yep.
And it was all over from there. Like it was like, oh, you mean you can do this? Like what the heck? So it's so amazing to hear that you guys had a similar situation, because like I talked about a small high school, you guys pretty small high school,
Oh yeah.
And I didn't see a Broadway show until college. It was Les Miserables, which is a really great way to jump right in.
Yeah, right, exactly. Go straight for the spectacle.
But and so when you started doing that stuff in middle school, and it did not surprise me, because honestly, like, Disney, around the time I was in college, that's when Beauty and the Beast came out. And when I saw Beauty and the Beast in the theater, it was like, it felt like musicals had come to the theater for us. So it had been a long time since they were really producing musicals, because they had all the old school ones. But it was like, once again, musicals were back in the theater. And so, like, it wasn't surprising to me that, you at your young age were into musicals, because that's what Disney was really like at the time anyway, like Aladdin and, even like Lion King, you can see, because it did translate into a musical. I mean, it's really not that far off. And so, no, I was ecstatic. And then I think Annie was your first show.
I think that was
high
my
school
first
show.
bigger, that was my first big show, was Annie. And I do remember they would, like, reach out to the middle schoolers. Like, we would get little flyers in class basically saying, we're doing the show, email this if you're interested. Honestly, that too, so I think this was before that. I did Wizard of Oz in 6th grade, but it was like a class production.
Okay.
So it's just for the class, and I was one of the Dorothys, so that was like a big deal.
Wow. I don't think I knew about
one
that.
of the Dorothys.
One of the three. There were three Dorothys. But also, like, Annie was my first experience too of like having role envy. Because I didn't realize it was an option to be Annie as a middle schooler, and I was like, why'd they pick this girl and not me? And but I think having that experience so young actually helped me a lot, because sometimes you're going to get picked and sometimes you're not, and that's how it goes, you know. But that's a hard lesson to learn.
Sometimes you're Annie, sometimes you're Orphan 482.
Yeah, and I was 480.
I think there might have been 480. I made
a lot of Annies. There were a lot of orphans in that
I
production.
made bloomers for that show. That was my first foray back into. I don't think I had sewn anything. I mean, I made a couple of like Halloween costumes for you growing up, you know. So like what was, you know, like, so did high school and then didn't really sew again until you guys were little and were willing to wear things that your parents had sewn, you know, and then and Halloween costumes. So when you were in Annie, then I was back into the, you know, sewing for theater, but
did you make all the bloomers?
not all the bloomers, but dear Lord, that is not a fun job.
And a lot of, I mean, I guess we were orphans, so I don't know if they did repairs on them or not, but we were jumping on, I don't know if you remember this, but we were jumping onto those wooden bunk beds, and like my knees would get torn up and stuff, so I'm sure bloomers were ripping left and right. I mean,
and it was cheap cotton material. But yeah, so I remember doing that for you. So, but I was ecstatic. And then when you went to high school, and you were in Anything Goes, I remember picking you up from rehearsal, and I was like, "Oh, do you think they need any help with costumes?" And I went in, and the next thing I know, I'm in charge of costumes, and I'm like, "Holy crap!" You know, like, welcome to the world of trying to costume an entire show, which I had never done before in my life.
Well, I think that changed, that moment, like, changed my trajectory, too, because that was, like, the first time we went up to the costume loft, and I was like, what is this? This is magical. Like, I want to just live here. And now I have my own costume loft, basically. And I like to say my basically hobby. If you haven't heard from me, it's because I'm moving costumes from one place to the other place
I know.
all the time.
Bane of my existence.
I've never stopped moving costumes around.
Yeah, I don't think you realized when you signed up for that one show that it was going to be, what was it, a 6-year contract?
No, oh my God, with that show too. So that was, I don't know if you guys talked about Anything Goes, but
we did a little bit.
I made all the angel costumes for that show,
yes.
and during Tech Week, first night, I'm standing backstage, and all the seams were opening up on the costumes. So I had bought costume satin. I wasn't given a real budget to work with, so I didn't know how much money I could spend. So I went to Joann's and I bought the cheapest thing that I could get, trying to save the school money, and they all fell apart the first night. I stayed up that I ran back out to Joann's and tried and bought whatever white material that I could find that had enough to costume. I think it was 4 angels.
Yep.
And I remade all those costumes that night. I also broke my collarbone that night falling out of bed. That was the same night.
Oh my gosh.
And I think it was the same night. It was really in close succession, and I had to work the next day, and it just the insanity. And so like the insanity of costuming started like right away.
Right away.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't run. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, I
So.
remember, like, when I had started, for Legally Blonde, actually, we had borrowed some stuff from the high school because the new drama teacher was there, and we were in a bind, and she let us borrow microphones because we needed more microphones last minute. And I remember, like, as we started developing that relationship again, a fire marshal went up to the costume loft and basically said, you have to get rid of half of this. Like, the whole top row had to be gotten rid of because it was a fire hazard. And this drama teacher, love her, really do. She never, even in our time, she never understood the appeal of costumes, really. So she was just like, I don't care, just pick half up and get rid of it. So when I was there, our friend who was working on Legally Blonde with us he was a student at the time, and he was saying, just so you know, we're getting rid of a ton of stuff. He was like, do you want to grab anything? And I was like, yeah. So I grabbed everything I could find that Jen had made. I pulled a bunch of vintage wedding dresses. I was like, oh my God. I was like, I don't have enough time. I was just grabbing stuff. But I got everything I could find that you had made. But for a while, it was unfortunately, it was a tradition that seniors would go up and steal their costumes. So there were certain pieces that I had wanted to pull that I don't know where they ended up, but I hope they're appreciated and they're in a good home.
Yeah. Well, so you mentioned this. Seems like a good tangent, Jen. I have a favorite story, and we were talking about it just briefly beforehand, but I didn't want this conversation to end without us sharing it and getting it recorded. So there's one moment that I remember between you and I in my high school career that I like to refer to as the day that Jen yelled at me. And it still makes me laugh to this day. So to give some context, it was my senior year. I was stage managing, or I was assistant director. No, stage managing. I was one of the two.
You were doing something.
I was in charge of finding people. That was the big thing. And you reference the drama teacher. I will never forget her coming to me and saying that she needed the lead for the show immediately. She was vocal director at the time. She needed the lead for the musical, and I knew that this person was back with you being costumed, and me just wanting to follow directions and not get in trouble. I was like, not a problem. I will go find them. I will get them for you immediately. So I go running back into the dressing room area, and I find you with this person. I think you were like pinning up, or you were trying something, or taking measurements or something. And I remember saying to you, Jen, I need this person. This person is being called for vocal rehearsal, and they're needed now. And you looked at me, and to this day, I still remember the exact phrasing of it. It was, if you don't let me to work on this costume right now, they will go on stage naked. And I looked at you, and in my mind, I'm like, okay, who am I going to disappoint? Who am I going to...
Both kind of scary women in that moment, I will say.
I definitely was thinking to myself, I'm like, there's no good option here. But you and I having that moment, I was like, okay, all right, so I'm not going to say anything else here. I'm going to say, okay, not a problem. And I turned right around and I said, you're going to have to wait a few minutes on vocals. You're just going to have to wait. This person is getting their costume ready, and you're just going to have to wait. And that to this day, I don't remember a whole lot about my high school experience. I remember quite a few things about the shows that we worked on, but that is one of those like core memories that I still to this day I bring up, especially when you're working on costumes for shows now. And I'm like, don't get in Jen's way. She's got a plan, and it's going to happen, and everyone is going to have a costume, but just don't get in her way because it's going to happen.
Just to give a little bit more context in the situation.
Absolutely.
So you alluded to the whole 60 kids in the show.
Right.
I don't remember how big that show was. But you had a director who was pretty much detached from the situation. Would not step in between I and the choral director, if needed be.
Mm-hmm.
And you had a vocal director who did not care about costumes.
Mm-hmm.
And you had a costumer who was running herself ragged,
mm-hmm.
trying to get everyone costume, and finally got her hands on the lead.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, how freaking dare she think? And it wasn't you.
Mm-hmm.
It was not you.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, in that moment, if you had not turned around and just done that,
mm-hmm.
she and I probably would have had some words, and there would have been another story to have here.
Well,
because I respect her greatly. I do, and it's just different perspectives on things. And
Absolutely.
And honestly, like by the time you're getting to that point in costuming, you are so close to the show.
Mm-hmm.
You are so close, and there's only so much time. And there's so much work that I do at home that is like not with the actors. I have so little time actually with the actors themselves.
Absolutely.
And so like it was just so much tension, so much going on at that moment that just I am so sorry that you got involved in that.
I think what's so great about that, and especially, I mean, that was 11 years ago now.
Long time ago.
That was a long time ago now, but like knowing that moment and like the working relationship that we have now, I'm like, Jen is so good at what she does. And like I don't hold anything from that. It's one of my favorite stories. It just is. It really is such a good like moment and a reminder to me that not only do you know what you're doing, but like you're gonna make it happen, and there is no obstacle in your way that's going to prevent that from happening. And that is something that I've just always been really impressed about.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, I knew from the look on your face that I had gone to a place we'd never gone before.
And I can fortunately say...
I really don't want to go back there.
I can fortunately say I don't think we've ever gotten to that point since, so...
Well, it's hard, and I think that's a perfect example of, like, that's what happens when you don't have a central point in a production. Like, every category kind of felt like it was on its own island because the director was kind of doing her thing, and the vocals doing their thing, choreo doing their thing, costumes, like, but no one really interacted ever. So you were kind of the bridge of all that. And I think the reason we don't have like those situations now is we're constantly communicating. So like we know, I'll give you a heads up, Jen's coming in for costumes today, and that means like she's gonna be pulling people out of scenes to work with them on costumes, and it's cool because it's what has to happen, And
that is the top priority.
And Joel now knows. Do not tell Jen no when she's picking costumes.
Now, let me ask you this: have I ever yelled at you in a similar fashion?
I feel like I feel like you and I both have those moments where like we're heated, and I think we handle them like in different ways, our response to those types of things. I don't think it's ever gotten to like that type of situation, but I think the dynamic was definitely different at that time.
And just a little clarity too, like because you were a teenager at the time. I did not yell. I was very stern.
Yes.
I was very clear about what was going to happen.
Oh, yes.
But I didn't raise my voice, I don't think. I mean...
you were probably... I mean, I think your volume was probably increased from what your normal speaking volume is.
But
Joel and I are both a little bit of sensitive people, so if someone speaks loudly at us, it's yelling, usually.
Yeah, so I'm sorry that it came across that way.
There's no need at all to apologize.
I immediately knew that something had happened and that the relationship was different. And I think immediately after I got home, I said something to Eric like, I think I scared Joel.
Well, what's the hardest show you've ever costumed?
Oh my
Let's
goodness.
forget high school. Let's just talk STS. Because I think your high school answer would be Little Mermaid. Victorian Little Mermaid.
With roller skates, yeah.
Favorite genre.
SpongeBob was was hard. There's just you can't pull a lot of that stuff. I mean,
No.
and if you are, you're altering it. And those effing legs.
Oh yeah, the Squidward legs.
I mean, you know, if you're in a theater that you know, unlimited budget, and you can rent them, something too that I've been thinking about, like, you know, sewing's really, and costuming too, is not really just fabric. It ventures into engineering and construction and all kinds of things. So, and involved in those legs, there was PVC pipe, there's glue, there's steel plates, there's all kinds of different screws, there's insulation foam, there was so much involved in building those legs. Not to mention, you know, putting two pairs of pants together and trying to make them look like, you know, they were one. So just so many aspects. And you know, we talked a lot about with you guys in high school. And I think that, you know, I did take some sewing classes in high school, but I also took mechanical drawing and wood shop. And those things served me really well when it comes to not only like with the Squidward legs, but also like constructing costumes, like learning how things go together and why it works. And so I just kind of have a love for that, and possibly an aptitude for that. But those, I mean, I learned so much in those legs, and we're doing it again this summer. And,
with some teens.
Yeah, and so that one was really hard, but it also it was really cool because they really did look good, and we did do it on a really good budget, considering what we did. I mean, it looked good, and I'm not tooting my own horn. I mean the show itself.
Well, you should, because they really did look incredible.
Thank you.
I still have. It's funny that you say SpongeBob, because the vocal director Kelly, who did SpongeBob, and I've had people in the cast who were in SpongeBob. Everyone says SpongeBob's their hardest show that they've ever done. Almost everyone. It's just a very difficult show to do.
Yeah.
But pivoting just a little bit and circling back to Legally Blonde, actually, I think my favorite costume that you've ever done is Elle's Quick Change costume.
Quick Change, yeah. That was my first time working with magnets. The discovery of magnets in costuming.
We had them on the clothes and the set.
Yeah.
Did have magnets everywhere.
And I've used them many times since, and just, you know, I used them for a local high school to do their Cinderella transformation dress.
Yep.
And I wish I had a video of that. That it just
Oh
it was
my gosh,
it was so cool.
We'll do Cinderella at some point. You'll
Yeah,
get to redo
do
it.
it again. I'll do it better this time. And you know, that's the thing too. Like, you guys have a trust in me that allows me to also learn, and I think that there's not an expectation that everything's going to be perfect right out of the gate.
Oh yeah.
And that you know, a year later doing the same show, it would look different because everyone's learning while we go, and that's true of every single person involved.
For sure.
And you can see how far it's come. But, you know, also, you know, revisited Grease recently, and it is so remarkable to me how great that show looked considering how early on it was. I mean, oh my God. And all of those quick change costumes, dear Lord. We got a bunch of guys to quick change really fast the middle of a really solid dance number, and Daryl is dancing over there, so I not to stare at him.
Ignore him. He's distracting. No, I thought about that too, and I think, you know, when I revisited Grease and was just like looking at old clips and whatnot, it really, in as far as like community theater, like typical standard community theater goes, it wasn't bad. It was pretty solid, and I was surprised having revisited it. I was like, wow, like, because we started with nothing. I still remember going to the hardware store with you because we were going to build the picnic table, This is something I think a lot of people don't.
Shop class, by the way.
Right. This is something I think a lot of people don't know about you, but like in those earlier years, you were like basically a huge contributor to the set construction and design. So I remember going to the hardware store with you, and I remember looking at the price for a box of screws because we had literally nothing for the theater company, and just seeing, oh my God, this box of screws is going to be $60, and you're like, well, we'll use them, and I'm like, yeah, but when you have no resources to pull from, those upfront costs are so much. Like going to Joann's and getting the fabric. For Sandy's opening outfit, and that was like another $60, and I was like, that's just one costume.
People think, I mean, I still think there's a impression that making things is cheaper. And the fact is that is not the world we live in anymore. It is so much cheaper to buy things ready-made if you can get what you want.
Right.
At least it was. I mean, things are kind of in flux right now, but it was such that it was easier to go on Amazon, easier to go on some of these retailers and get things much cheaper than making them. But you also have a situation where you can't get exactly what you want. They're
the size.
The sizes.
Size you
the
need.
sizes are not. They're very exclusionary, and something about small town stars is you don't exclude people because of size. I mean, I've heard of theater companies that will not cast people because the costume doesn't fit. And that's not the situation here. Now, as a costumer, sometimes that makes it a little bit hard. I will be honest, because I am not the best at pattern drafting, but it has taught me to be better at using my resources and better at adapting patterns. And honestly, I take pride in the fact that I am part of a company that doesn't exclude people because of those kinds of things, because of limitations like that. And and we find creative ways to do cheap things like buying sheets instead of buying yards of fabric. There are ways around some of those costs, but it part of that is growing up poor. And I mean, you learn to use the skills that you have on hand to find creative solutions.
Well, you taught me a lot of those tricks. Like I mean, I've gotten really good at tight budgets because of some of those things. Like, and that's how we do so many shows. Is we actually, for the most part, stick to our budgets. And sheets is a big one. If you are telling yourself you need black fabric, go get a set of black sheets from Walmart because it will be cheaper. But also, I think what you were alluding to that I kind of want to spell out for people that don't know is it's not just shopping that's exclusive in some sizes. They don't even make patterns that go up to those sizes.
Exactly.
So you have to actually go in and adjust and like make your own patterns to be able to costume certain sizes.
But thank God that as things are changing, there are electronic patterns now available that allow you to manipulate the sizing much better. So thank God, things are changing, because that's so wrong. It's just so wrong.
Yeah, I mean, you shouldn't be excluded from consideration for certain roles because you're going to be hard to costume.
And you shouldn't be able to get specialty clothes or make yourself something special because of your size. That's wrong.
It's really tough. So, I mean, hopefully the world will continue to evolve and be more inclusive, but I'm glad we found a way to, because you also, like, you get to a point where you're like, I've done this. I've looked on Amazon, especially for Sweeney Todd. I was looking for some niche costume sizes, and it looked like a sack, and that was the only thing I could find. And I was like, I cannot put someone on stage in what looks like a sack. That is ridiculous. So, I mean, luckily I have your number, just called you up, and I was like, I need help because I want them to have as good of a costume as anyone else.
And they should. They deserve to.
Yeah, 100%.
Every actor who's on the stage is putting in and giving their all. And sometimes that costume is what pushes them over and lets them perform the art the way they need. Sometimes it's maybe that extra bit of self-confidence that they need to do it. But they all deserve the same respect, and part of that is getting a costume that they deserve.
Right, and if we have to work a little harder to make that happen because the world sucks, we'll do it.
We'll do it.
Yeah.
We'll do it.
Well, we're starting to run low on time, but I did have one really, really important and fun question I wanted to ask you.
Oh, boy.
I'm so
to
excited.
wrap us up.
Oh, no.
But if you could costume any show,
Oh, my.
what would it be?
Any budget,
Any
too.
budget. There are no limitations.
Oh, my goodness. That's a hard
Do you
one.
have
You guys
one?
should have given me that before we started. I could have, thought about it all night last night.
But now we get to hear what your gut
Yeah.
is going to tell you.
Oh, boy. So, because Brigadoon was the first show that I ever saw, there's still a special place in my heart for it. And I will never perform in that because I can't do accents. So the only thing that I really could contribute to that would be costumes. Maybe that. Les Miserables would be amazing. Or Hamilton. But I would be the person who'd want to start from scratch. I would want to make every single freaking thing myself.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, in the dream situation, you would have all the measurements and you would have an entire year to do everything.
A team to help.
team.
And yes, it'd be all your design.
You could just throw things at people. Do this, do that.
a year doesn't necessarily help because I'm also really good at procrastinating. But I'm going to say that that's part of my creative process, and that then the stress of not having enough time to get things done causes me to get them done. I don't know. But yeah, I think those are probably the big ones on my list. I'm not really into the glitz and glamoury kind of things. I love big dresses. And so I'm going to get to make some big dresses for Into the Woods. I'm really looking forward to that. I already made one for Cinderella. I haven't really seen it with the hoop yet. I can't wait. That was made out of sheets, by the way, for about $15. So I'm really looking forward to seeing it in its full glory. So we'll see how it goes.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Well, Jen, thanks for getting snarky with us.
Sure.
Yes.
We'll have you back.
We've got so much more to discuss.
Yeah,
with
I
you,
know. We
so.
didn't even get through all the questions, so I'll have to have you back at some point.
Well, I'd like to think that I contribute to the original snarkiness anyway. I think I helped, develop that snarky attitude.
I think that is a fun anecdote to end on. Usually when people haven't met you, but they know me, and then they meet you, they go, oh, that's where she got it from.
And you know what? I used to go, what do they mean by that? And now, honestly, I'm just like, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like,
thank you.
People
I
don't
take
usually
pride
mess
in
with
that.
me, so
I
there
take
you
a lot
go.
of pride in that. So I'm really proud of being a part of this theater. I'm really proud of the work that you guys have done, and I'm really proud of Miranda. I mean,
Thank you.
She just this is just an amazing group, honestly.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Well, until next time, shine, shine, shine a light.
Bye.
Bye.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for getting snarky with us. We'll see you later.
See you next time.